filming this right before I have to go to work, so this is going to be a quick in and out, and you'll get the video, I promise, in due time. In due time. Due time. Due time. Woo! I can't speak. Let's see if we can do this. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Digging in the Crates, a series brought to you by the Melanated Archives. I'm Kendra Touche, or just Kendra. Artist, podcast host, and the creator of the Melanated Archives. Welcome, 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 welcome back. Your dreams where you ticket out. I think I might be like the only millennial that can make references to welcome back Carter, not Carter, Carter all the time, and I don't know, still kind of semi-cool. I'm really like 80 years old in my head, but hence the reason why we have a series called Digging in the Crates. If you like murder mystery, this might be an episode that you're really interested in. I hope. Anyways, I think it's time that we get down to the nitty gritty of what really happened to Maria P. Williams. Who, you might ask? I'm talking about Miss Maria P. Williams, a woman credited as the first Black female producer known for her groundbreaking work in the early 1920s. Maria's legacy has almost been entirely wiped out, forgotten by mainstream society today, and damn near erased from history and rarely, if ever, covered by major media outlets. But was it simply because she lived a long time ago and wasn't necessarily a commercial success by today's standards? Or is it because her death is shrouded in mystery during one of the darkest times in American history? Well, that part is kind of questionable, but yeah. Hey, either way you slice it, we are picking up the breadcrumbs and offering them up as a full meal today. This is the impactful life and mysterious death of the first Black female producer, Miss Maria P. Williams. Now, I have to admit that before doing my research for this episode of Digging in the Crates, I had only really heard of Queen Maria's story in passing. She was always described with words like trailblazer, legend, visionary artist, which are all important, but they don't really tell us who the woman was or what she stood for. It wasn't until I started to peel back the layers of her story myself that I came to discover the depths of her impact on Black artists, Black media, and the overall trajectory of Black people in America. That's also when I realized that, hey, there's a story here. Albeit it's a little short, but still it's a story, and it's much bigger than what we've been led to believe. So today, you and I are gonna dig deep together. This is a group effort. We are going to collectively voice this woman's story and pull it from the unmarked graves of history, because this is a name that should be relevant to us today as it was to those who knew her in the early 20th century. If you look up Maria P. Williams on Wikipedia, you'll get the bare bones. She was the first Black female film producer in America. She was a newspaper editor and an author. She lived one hell of a life before entering the film industry. And while all those things are true and nice, let's put a little meat and potatoes on this plate, shall we? Born Maria Priscilla Thurston in 1866 in Versailles, Missouri, little is known about her childhood, but what we do know is that she started her first career as a school teacher. And not just any teacher, but one who made a name for herself as an activist and an advocate for the liberal arts. Eventually, Williams, the name that will come into play a little later on in the story, eventually her classroom work translated into something much bigger. She was a public speaker, traveling throughout the state of Kansas, delivering lectures on topics of the day. So I imagine that whatever was going on out there in the world, she was actually connecting the dots herself and making sure that her community stayed well informed. And by 1891, her passion for social change led her to the Kansas City weekly newspaper, New Era, where she worked as an editor-in-chief for 3 years before launching her own newspaper, The Women's Voice. Now get this, the Women's Voice wasn't just any newspaper. It was sponsored by the Colored Women's Auxiliary of the Republican Party during a time when Black folks didn't even have the right to vote, mind you. And many of us know this, but I feel like I need to make it known again that at the time, the Republican Party was seen as the more progressive choice for Black Americans, particularly during the Reconstruction era. But let's put this into context. This was a critical moment in history. The United States was still figuring out how to integrate millions of newly freed Black Americans into society, politics, and of course, the labor systems. And Black media outlets like the New Orleans Tribune, the Christian Recorder, and the San Francisco Elevator became essential. These weren't just newspapers, they were lifelines. They kept Black communities informed about their rights, the dangers of racial violence, and the systematic discrimination that were up against them. And in many ways, this is why Black-owned media outlets still face major challenges to this very day, and why many of us still have not forgiven Bob Johnson for selling off BET back in the day to folks who could care less about the Black culture. But, whew, honey, I digress. Let's talk a little bit more about Miss Maria. So in 1916, Maria published her very own memoir, My Work and Public Sentiment, dedicating 10% of her book sales to reducing crime in the Black community. That same year, she got married and took on the name Williams after joining in holy matrimony with Jesse L. Williams, who was an entrepreneur, and get this, a movie theater owner. I'm gonna pause for a moment, because do you know how rare it was for a Black man to own a movie theater in 1916? Now, I did a little bit of investigating myself, and I dug a little bit and found out that back in 1907, there were no moving picture shows, as they were called, for Black audiences, and that was just a few years before this. So Black moviegoers wanted to see themselves on screen, but early cinema was dominated by racist portrayals, especially with films like 1915's The Birth of a Nation. By 1916, Black folks had pretty much had enough. They started creating their own outlets, and the Lincoln Motion Picture Company, founded by Oscar Micheaux and his brother, were one of them created early on. And Jesse and Maria P. Williams, well, they weren't just watching, they were building a piece of this movement as well. And by 1923, Maria and Jesse co-founded the Western Film Producing Company and Booking Exchange, one of the earliest Black-owned film production and distribution companies. And that same year, Maria became the first Black woman to write, produce, and act in a film. That film was called The Flames of Wrath. Now here's the wild part. The movie was described as a silent mystery drama starring Maria as a prosecuting attorney. The plot, a murder, a robbery, an escaped convict, and a legal shutdown. So keep that plot in mind, because we'll come right back around to it, I promise you. And Maria and Jesse Williams weren't just producing the film, they were also handling their own distribution, which is major. The Flames of Wrath made its way to multiple Black theaters, particularly in the southeastern United States. In fact, in a letter to the manager of the Douglas Theater in Macon, Georgia, the largest Black theater in the city, Florida cinema manager Roger Wilson confidently stated that the film had never lost a dollar to an exhibitor in all of its rounds. Now that's what I call a blockbuster hit, okay? Bam. Now, while Maria P. Williams was enjoying the wave of her newly found success, the moment of triumph was overshadowed by tragedy. Her husband, Jesse L. Williams, passed away that same year. And while details surrounding his death remain unclear, we do know that Maria eventually remarried. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any records of who her second husband might have been, and there is little to no documentation that exists about Williams' life between the release of The Flames of Wrath and her passing in 1932. Many historians believe that after Jesse's death in 1923, Maria stepped away from filmmaking altogether, making Flames of Wrath her only known cinematic work. Now, remember when I told you that we would come right back around to the plot of The Flames of Wrath? Well, this is the moment in the video. In a tragic and eerie twist, nearly a decade after releasing a crime drama about murder and investigation, Williams herself became a victim of a violent crime. In January of 1932, she was reportedly approached by a stranger seeking help for a sick relative. Lured from her home, she was later found shot on the side of a road, miles away. The details of the criminal investigation remain murky, and her murder was never officially solved. The irony? The flames of wrath revolved around the pursuit of justice after a robbery and murder. Yet in real life, Maria P. Williams' own tragic ending remained shrouded in mystery. To this day, no one knows who did it or why, but the fact that she was a Black woman in a highly visible and highly influential position, that alone makes you question whether this was just a random act of violence or something much bigger. For decades, her contributions to cinema were almost completely erased. That was until 1992, when UCLA's Charles E. Young Research Library uncovered a single frame of The Flames of Wrath in George P. Johnson's silent film collection. And get this, historians now believe that Maria might have actually been the director of the film, not just the producer. But because history has a way of burying Black women's accomplishments, the credit usually goes elsewhere. But here's the truth. Maria P. Williams paved the way. For every Ava DuVernay, every Mara Brock-Akil or Lena Waithe, there was a Maria P. Williams doing a lot of that before it was even considered possible. Her story is unfinished, but that's because we are the ones who are meant to continue it. So here's a little piece of advice to every filmmaker, journalist, writer, actor, producer, creative. Get on the grind. Times may have changed, but at the same time, not so much. There's still work to do, stories to be told, and lives to document. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Digging in the Crates. If you like this story time, be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And don't forget to follow the Melanated Archives on all of our social media platforms, wherever they may be. And be sure to subscribe to the Melanated Archives podcast, link in the description below. Season 3 is coming out very soon. And until next time, keep dreaming, keep creating, and keep living in color. Remember, melanated isn't just skin tone, it's also a mindset. And as long as you can see in color, you can create a world that represents and includes and is fair to each and every one of us living here. I'm Kendra Touche, and I'll see you next time. Peace.